Taemin stood at the window of the orbital station and looked down at Earth. The planet turned slowly beneath him, blue and green and beautiful. He had been stationed at Aegis Prime for 3 years now, watching over humanity's home world. It was a quiet job, mostly. Nothing ever happened up here in the dark. He turned away from the window and walked back to his console. The screen showed normal readings. Everything was peaceful. Earth had just made contact with aliens 6 months ago, and everyone was excited about it. The Galactic Concordat, they called themselves. An empire of thousands of worlds, stretching across the stars. They had sent diplomats to Earth, offering humanity a place in their great civilization. Taemin had watched the news broadcasts with everyone else. Ambassador Jiwon had gone to meet with the Concordat representatives. She was smart and strong, and everyone trusted her to speak for Earth. The aliens had made their offer simple. Join the Concordat, follow their laws, and humanity would have access to technology beyond imagination. Trade, travel, medicine, everything. But there was a catch. Earth would have to give up its independence. No more separate nations. No more human governments. Everything would be controlled by the imperial throne on some distant world Taemin couldn't even pronounce. Jiwon had said no. She had stood in front of the alien council and refused. Humanity wanted friendship, she said. Partnership, not surrender. The news had shown her speech, and people had cheered. Finally, humans were meeting aliens as equals, not subjects. Taemin had cheered too, but now, staring at his console, he felt uneasy. The Concordat had been silent for 3 weeks. No messages, no contact. Their ships had simply left Earth's system without a word. The alarm shattered the silence. Taemin spun to his screens. His heart stopped. Dozens of ships were appearing around Earth, materializing out of nothing. They were huge, each one the size of a city. Their hulls were dark and covered in weapons. The Concordat fleet had returned. All stations, battle alert. Taemin shouted into his comm. Unknown hostile vessels entering Earth orbit. But even as he spoke, he knew it was too late. The alien ships didn't wait. They didn't send warnings or demands. They simply opened fire. The first beams of energy hit Seoul. Taemin watched in horror as the city lit up on his screen. The orbital bombardment was precise and devastating. Entire districts vanished in seconds, turned to ash and smoke. The Han River boiled away. Buildings that had stood for centuries crumbled like sand. And the people, millions of people, died without warning, without mercy. "Return fire," someone screamed over the comm. "Protect the surface." Aegis Prime shook as its weapons came online. Taemin grabbed his console as the station fired everything it had at the alien fleet. Other defense platforms joined in. Earth's orbital defenses had been built to stop asteroids and space debris, but the engineers had added weapons just in case this exact thing happened, but it wasn't enough. The alien ships moved through the defensive fire like it was nothing. Their shields absorbed the attacks, glowing bright blue but never breaking, and they kept firing on Earth. Seoul was burning. Then Beijing lit up, then Moscow. The aliens were targeting Earth's major cities one after another, methodical and cold. Taemin's hands flew across his console. He rerouted power, trying to boost the weapons, but it was useless. The alien technology was too advanced. They had been flying through space for thousands of years while humanity had barely reached its own moon a century ago. "Aegis Prime, this is ground command," a voice crackled through heavy static. "Evacuate immediately. The station is lost. Repeat. Evacuate." The transmission cut off as another city died. Taemin looked at his crew. 15 people, all staring at their screens with pale faces. They were scientists and engineers, not soldiers, but they were all Earth had right now. "Get to the escape pods," Taemin ordered. "Now." "Sir, what about you?" asked Hyawan, his second officer. "I'm right behind you. Go." The crew ran. Taemin stayed at his console, firing every weapon the station had. It didn't matter that it wasn't working. He had to try. He had to do something while his world burned below him. An alien ship turned toward Aegis Prime. It was smaller than the others, but still massive compared to the station. Its weapons powered up, glowing red in the darkness. Taemin ran. He sprinted down the corridor as the station shook apart around him. Explosions ripped through the hull. The lights went out, replaced by emergency red. He could hear metal screaming as the structure collapsed. The last escape pod was waiting. Hyawan stood at the door, holding it open. "Get in," she screamed. Taemin dove through the door. Hyawan slammed the controls and the pod launched, throwing them against their seats. Through the small window, Taemin watched Aegis Prime explode, torn apart by alien fire. The pieces scattered into space, burning. The pod's engines fired, pushing them away from the battle. But Taemin couldn't look away from Earth. Half the planet was covered in smoke now. Fires burned across entire continents. The oceans reflected the orange glow of cities dying. "They're broadcasting something," Haiwan said quietly. She had accessed the pod's communication system. "The aliens. They're sending a message on all frequencies." "Play it," Taemin said. The voice that came through was translated by computer, flat and emotionless. "People of Earth, you have been judged unworthy of peaceful integration. Your refusal to accept the Concordate's generous offer has been noted. This is your punishment. Submit now, and your species will be allowed to survive as workers and servants. Refuse again, and you will be exterminated. You have one planetary rotation to decide." The message repeated. Over and over. Submit or die. Taemin looked at the burning planet. He thought about Seoul, where he had been born, where his parents still lived, where his sister raised her children. All of them were probably dead now. Millions of people killed to make a point, to teach humanity a lesson about defying the Empire. The rage came slowly, building from somewhere deep inside his chest. It wasn't the hot anger of a moment. It was cold and hard and permanent. The Concordate thought they could bomb Earth into submission. They thought one demonstration of power would make humanity kneel. They didn't understand humans at all. Taemin pulled up the pod's communication system. He set it to broadcast on all military frequencies. Every ship, every base, every soldier who was still alive would hear this. "This is Commander Taemin of Aegis Prime," he said, his voice steady despite everything. "Earth has been attacked. Millions are dead. The aliens want us to surrender. They want us to become their slaves." He paused, looking at the burning world. "They're waiting for our answer. Here it is. No. We will never surrender. We will never kneel. They want to teach us about power. We'll teach them about rage. We'll teach them about what happens when you attack Earth. Every human who can fight, regroup at coordinates I'm sending now. We're going to war." He ended the transmission. The escape pod drifted through space, moving away from Earth toward the outer system, toward the asteroid belt, where Earth's small fleet was stationed, where survivors would gather. Below, Earth continued to burn. The Concordate fleet remained in orbit, waiting for humanity's surrender. They would be waiting a long time. Daeyeon crouched in the ruins of what used to be her apartment building. The walls were gone, blown away by the orbital strike. She could see the sky through holes in the ceiling, gray and full of ash. Seoul had been beautiful once. Now it was a graveyard. She adjusted her rifle and peered around the corner. 3 alien soldiers walked down the street, their armor gleaming despite the dust everywhere. They were tall, taller than any human, and they moved like they owned the world, because they did own it now. Earth had not surrendered, but the Concordate had invaded anyway. Troops had landed in every major city. They called it peacekeeping, but it was occupation. Daeyeon had been a teacher before the attack. She taught children about history and math. Now she taught herself how to kill aliens. She waited until the soldiers passed, then slipped out of the building and moved deeper into the ruins. Her resistance cell was meeting today. 5 people, all that remained of her neighborhood. Everyone else was dead or had fled to the countryside. The meeting place was an old subway station, collapsed and forgotten. Daeyeon climbed down through a crack in the street and found the others waiting. Woo Jin, who had been a police officer, Soo, a doctor, Kite, a mechanic, and Minho, who was only 17 but fought like he was made of anger. "Any news?" Woo Jin asked. Dayun nodded. The aliens are moving supplies through the Eastern District tonight. Big convoy. Food, weapons, medical supplies. All heading to their main base. Can we hit it? Su'a asked. We have to try. People are starving. If we can steal some of those supplies— No, Kite interrupted. We don't steal. We destroy. Dayan looked at him. What? I've been listening to the broadcasts from the outer system, Kite explained. He had rigged an old radio to pick up military transmissions. Commander Taemin, the one who escaped from the orbital station, he's gathering what's left of Earth's fleet, and he's attacking the aliens wherever he finds them. Good for him, Minho said bitterly. But we're stuck here on Earth with no ships and barely any weapons. That's not the point, Kite continued. The point is the strategy. He's not trying to beat them in a fair fight. We can't, they're too strong. But he's hitting them where it hurts. Supply lines, communication stations, small targets that add up. The doctrine of wrath, Wu Jin said quietly. I heard about it on the underground network. Our military leaders met on Europa last month. They're not fighting to win battles anymore. They're fighting to make the aliens bleed, to make them regret ever coming to Earth. Dan understood immediately, so we don't steal the supplies. We destroy them. We make sure the aliens can't use them either. Exactly, Kite said. And we make it hurt. We show them that every day they stay on Earth will make them pay. That night they moved through the ruins like ghosts. The alien convoy was exactly where Daun's informant said it would be. 6 large vehicles moving slowly through the rubble-filled streets. The aliens didn't even have guards walking alongside. They felt safe. They thought humans were broken. Daun proved them wrong. The explosives Kitai had built were simple but effective. When the convoy reached the old bridge, the bombs went off simultaneously. The bridge collapsed and 3 of the vehicles fell into the river below. The other 3 stopped and alien soldiers poured out searching for attackers. They never saw Daun and her team. The humans were already gone, disappearing into the ruins they knew better than anyone. Behind them, the convoy burned, and the supplies the aliens needed became ash. Far above Earth, in the darkness between Mars and the asteroid belt, Taemin stood on the bridge of the frigate Freedom's Price. It wasn't much of a warship. Before the invasion, it had been a cargo hauler modified with a few weapons. But it was all he had. Around him, scattered across millions of kilometers of space, were 37 other ships. Some were military vessels that had survived the first attack. Most were civilian ships that had been armed with whatever weapons their crews could mount. Mining lasers, industrial cutters, missile pods stolen from destroyed defense platforms. It was the entire human space fleet. 38 ships against an empire of thousands of worlds. Sir, we're receiving the intelligence report from Europa, said Haiwan. She had stayed with Taimin after the escape, becoming his second in command. General Sang-ho wants to speak with you. The general's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired, but his eyes were hard. Commander, the War Council has finalized our strategy. We're calling it the Wrath Doctrine. I've heard rumors, Taemin said. Then you know what we're planning. We can't beat the Concordat in conventional warfare. They have better ships, better weapons, better everything. So we're not going to fight conventionally. Sang-ho leaned forward. We're going to make them bleed. Every trade route, every supply depot, every minor outpost they have, we hit it. We don't hold territory. We don't defend positions. We attack and disappear. We make them afraid to travel their own space. That's guerrilla warfare on a galactic scale, Taemin said. Exactly. And it's not just us in space. Resistance fighters on Earth are doing the same thing. We've made contact with partisan groups on every occupied continent. The aliens thought they could control 7 billion humans with a few thousand troops. They're learning that was a mistake. Taemin thought about it. It was brutal. It was desperate. But it might work. What are my orders? We've identified a Concordat supply depot on Titan. It's lightly defended because they think we can't reach it. Prove them wrong. Hit it hard, take what you can, destroy the rest, then disappear before reinforcements arrive. Understood, sir. The attack on Titan happened 3 days later. Taemin's small fleet dropped out of quantum space right on top of the supply depot. The aliens were caught completely by surprise. They had sensors, but they had never expected humans to attack this far from Earth. Lieutenant Minna led the boarding team. She was small and quick, a former Special Forces soldier who had survived the destruction of her base in Antarctica. Her team moved through the depot like a storm. planting charges on everything they couldn't carry. "We've got food supplies," one of her soldiers reported. "Medical gear. And sir, you need to see this." Minna ran to where he was pointing. A warehouse full of weapons. Not alien weapons, but human ones. The Concordat had been storing them here. Trophies taken from destroyed Earth bases. "Load everything," Minna ordered. "Every gun, every missile, every bullet. We're taking it all home." 20 minutes later, her team was back on the ships. Taemin gave the order, and the fleet jumped away. Behind them, Titan's supply depot exploded. The charges Minna's team had planted, turning the entire facility into a fireball that lit up Saturn's sky. On Earth, Dyson heard about the Titan attack through the underground network. The news spread through the resistance like fire. Humans had struck back. They had hit the aliens on one of their own bases far from Earth and gotten away clean. It gave her hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, humanity could win this. But that same day, the aliens struck back. They had realized the resistance was operating out of Sol's ruins. Orbital bombardment turned another district to dust. Thousands of civilians died, many of them people who weren't even part of the resistance. The aliens didn't care. To them, all humans were the enemy now. Daun stood in the ashes and felt her hope turn to something harder, something colder. Kite found her there. "We're hitting another convoy tomorrow," he said quietly. "Bigger one. More guards." "Good," Daun said. "I want to hurt them more." Far away on Europa, General Sang-ho received reports from all across Earth and the solar system. Resistance cells were active on every continent. The space fleet had destroyed 3 supply depots and raided 4 trade routes. The aliens were bringing in more troops, more ships, trying to restore order. But order was impossible now. Humanity had learned a lesson the Concordat had forgotten over its 1,000 years of peace. People who have nothing left to lose are the most dangerous enemy of all. Sang-ho opened a secure channel to all human forces. His message was simple. They wanted to teach us to fear them. Instead, we're teaching them to fear us. Keep fighting. Make them bleed. Make them regret ever hearing the name Earth. And across the solar system, in ruins and asteroids and hidden bases, humans heard the message and prepared for the next attack. The war had truly begun. Captain Hyunwoo stared at the star map in front of him. Red dots marked Concordat military bases. Blue lines showed their trade routes. Yellow circles indicated supply depots. The map stretched across dozens of light years, showing the local sector of the empire. It had been 9 months since Earth was attacked. 9 months of running and hiding and striking back. His ship, the Defiant Wind, had once been a luxury passenger liner. Now it was covered in stolen weapons and moved through space like a predator. "Target confirmed," said his tactical officer Yoon Seo. "Concordat fuel depot on the moon of Dravaris 4. 3 ships docked, minimal defense grid." "Distance from their nearest military base?" Hyunwoo asked. 16 light years. By the time they respond to a distress call, we'll be long gone." Hyunwoo nodded. "Weapons ready. We jump in 3 minutes." The attack was brutal and fast. The Defiant Wind dropped out of quantum space right above the depot. Before the aliens could even send a distress signal, Hyunwoo's weapons tore through their communications array. Then he targeted the fuel storage tanks. The explosion could be seen from the planet below. 3 Concordat ships and enough fuel to supply a fleet for a month, all gone in seconds. Hyunwoo's ship jumped away before the debris stopped falling. This was the new human strategy. Hit fast, hit hard, disappear. Never fight fair. Never give the enemy a chance to use their superior technology. The Concordat had thousands of ships, but they couldn't be everywhere at once, and humanity only needed to be in one place at a time to cause damage. On the planet Varantis Prime, 800 light-years from Earth, something unexpected was happening. The planet's native species, the Varanti, had lived under Concordat rule for 3 centuries. They paid their taxes, followed the laws, and never caused trouble. That was how you survived in the Empire, but then the humans came. Jae-hoon led his commando team through the streets of Varantis City in the middle of the night. They wore stolen Concordat uniforms and carried identification that said they were inspectors. The guards at the Imperial Administrative Complex didn't question them. Why would they? No one attacked the Concordat. The explosives were placed carefully throughout the building. Jae-hoon's team had 12 minutes to get out before the charges went off. They made it in 10. The explosion lit up the night sky. The entire complex collapsed, killing the Imperial governor and his staff. But more importantly, it killed the idea that the Concordat was untouchable. The Varanti watched from their homes as the building burned. They saw humans, a species they had never heard of until recently, strike directly at Imperial power. And they saw those humans escape, disappearing into the night while Concordat soldiers ran around in confusion. Within a week, Varantis Prime had its first riots in 300 years. Within a month, it had a full rebellion. The Varanti stopped paying taxes. They attacked Imperial troops. They demanded independence, and they weren't alone. Across the Empire, other species watched what was happening. They saw one small species, one backward planet, fighting the entire Concordat and actually hurting it. If humans could resist, maybe anyone could. On the imperial capital world of Concordat Prime, Emperor Veltharis IX sat on his throne and listened to reports that made his blood cold. 17 supply depots destroyed, 32 trade ships lost, 4 military bases damaged, and worst of all, 8 client species in open rebellion. "How many ships do the humans have?" he demanded. "Our intelligence suggests less than 50, Admiral Corvus reported. "Small vessels, poorly armed compared to our fleet. Then why can't you stop them?" The admiral had no good answer. The truth was that the Concordat had fought wars of conquest for centuries, but never a war like this. When they invaded a world, they destroyed its military, occupied its cities, and the population surrendered. That was how it always worked, but humans didn't fight that way. They didn't defend, they attacked. They didn't care about holding territory. They cared about causing pain, and they were very good at it. "Bring me High Chancellor Arinthia," Veltharis ordered. "We need new strategies." Back in the solar system, engineer Su Jin worked in a hidden laboratory built into an asteroid. She had been a weapons designer for Earth's military before the war. Now she was designing weapons the Concordat had never imagined. Her latest creation sat on the workbench in front of her. It looked like a normal missile, but it was anything but normal. The warhead used principles of quantum phasing that she had stolen from captured Concordat technology and improved on. When it hit a target, it would phase through the shields, bypassing them completely before exploding inside the target. "The first test worked perfectly," she told General Sang-ho over the secure channel. "We can now hit their capital ships. How many can you build? With current resources? Maybe 20 missiles per month. We need rare materials that are hard to find." "Then we'll find them," Sang-ho promised. "Whatever you need, engineer. This could change the war." Su Jin smiled grimly. The Concordat thought their technology was untouchable. They were about to learn that humans were very good at taking things apart and putting them back together in unexpected ways. Lieutenant Minna's team had a new mission. They were going deeper into Concordat space than any humans had gone before. Their target was the orbital palace above Concordat Prime itself, where the richest and most powerful members of the Empire lived in luxury. Getting there took 3 weeks of careful travel, jumping from system to system, hiding in asteroid fields and nebulae whenever Concordat patrols came near. But they made it, and they brought Su Jin's new missiles with them. "Are we really doing this?" one of Minna's soldiers asked as they approached the capital system. "Attacking the palace? That's where the Emperor lives." "We're not trying to kill the Emperor," Minna said. "We're trying to kill everyone around him. The nobles, the politicians, the generals who are safe and comfortable while our world burns. We're going to make them feel what we felt." The attack came without warning. Minna's ship dropped out of quantum space just long enough to fire 6 missiles at the orbital palace. Then they jumped away, racing back toward the outer systems before the Concordat fleet could respond. The missiles phased through the palace's shields like they weren't even there. The explosions tore through 3 levels of the structure, killing thousands of the Empire's elite in seconds. The survivors fled in their private ships running for the planet's surface. The Emperor himself was safe in the main palace below, but he watched the orbital platform burn and realized something terrible. Nowhere in his empire was safe anymore. If humans could strike here, at the very heart of Concordat power, they could strike anywhere. Beltharis IX called an emergency meeting of his High Council. Chancellor Orinthia attended, along with the military commanders and the heads of the major client species. "We need a new approach," Beltharis said. His voice was controlled, but everyone could hear the fear underneath. "The humans cannot be defeated through conventional warfare." "Then we need to make peace," Orinthia said. The room erupted. Make peace? With primitives, with terrorists, it was unthinkable. The Concordat had never made peace with an enemy. They crushed their enemies or absorbed them. Those were the only options. "If we don't make peace," Orinthia continued, "the Empire will collapse. 8 species are already in rebellion, inspired by human resistance. How many more will join them? 10? 20? We don't have enough ships to hold the Empire together while fighting a war on 100 fronts." "The humans must be destroyed," Admiral Corvus insisted. "They are an infection spreading through the galaxy." "Then destroy them," Orinthia challenged. "You've had 9 months. Why haven't you?" The Admiral had no answer. On Earth, in the ruins of Sol, Da-Yun heard the news about the attack on the orbital palace. The underground network was celebrating. Humans had struck at the very heart of the Empire. They had shown the Concordat that no one was safe. But Da-Un didn't feel like celebrating. She stood in the ashes of her city, surrounded by graves. The aliens had struck back against the resistance again last week. More civilians dead, more neighborhoods destroyed. The war was spreading and Earth was paying the price. "We're winning," Kite said, standing beside her. "Can't you see? The Empire is cracking. At what cost?" Da-Un asked quietly. "How many more have to die before this ends?" "All of them, if necessary," Kite said. His voice was hard. "They started this. We're just finishing it." Da-Yun looked at her friend and saw a stranger. The war was changing everyone, making them harder, colder, more willing to accept terrible things in the name of victory. She wondered if they would recognize themselves when it was all over, if there would be anything left of the people they used to be far above in the darkness of space. Commander Taemin received new orders from General Sang-Ho. The human fleet was being divided into smaller groups. Each group would hit multiple targets simultaneously across a 50-light-year radius. The goal was to stretch the Concordat fleet so thin that they couldn't respond to everything. "We're going to burn them down," Sang-Ho said in his message. "Every base, every depot, every symbol of their power. We're going to burn it all until they beg us to stop." Taemin looked at his crew. They were exhausted. They had been fighting for 9 months without rest. But they were also determined. Every person on his ship had lost someone in the initial attack. 1 year and 3 months after the attack on Earth, the Galactic Concordat was falling apart. 23 species had declared independence. Trade routes that had been safe for centuries were now dangerous. Entire sectors of the Empire had descended into chaos, and at the center of it all were the humans, still fighting, still striking, still refusing to surrender. Ambassador Ji-won stood in the hidden command center on Europa and read the latest reports. Human casualties on Earth had passed 1 billion. The number was too large to understand. 1 billion people dead from orbital bombardment, ground fighting, starvation, and disease. Earth's cities were ruins, its forests burned. Its oceans were poisoned with debris from destroyed orbital platforms. But the Concordat was bleeding too. Their military was stretched across 100 different crisis points. Their economy was collapsing as trade broke down, and their client species were learning that the Empire was not invincible after all. "Ambassador," a voice said. Ji-won turned to see a young officer standing at attention. "We're receiving a secure transmission. It's from the Concordat High Council. They want to talk." Ji-won felt her heart skip. "About what?" "They didn't say, but it's marked urgent and eyes only for you." Ji-won went to the secure communication room. The screen showed Chancellor Orinthia, the Concordat's most powerful politician after the Emperor himself. She looked tired. "Ambassador Ji-won," Orinthia said, "thank you for accepting this communication." "I haven't agreed to anything except listening," Ji-won replied carefully. "That's all I ask." Orinthia leaned forward. "This war must end. Both our peoples are suffering. The galaxy is burning. We need to find peace. The Concordat attacked Earth without provocation. You murdered millions of civilians as a demonstration, And you expect us to make peace? I expect you to be realistic, Orinthia said. Yes, we attacked first. Yes, we underestimated humanity. But look at where we are now. The Empire is collapsing. Species that we protected for centuries are descending into war with each other. Trade has stopped. Millions are dying across the galaxy, not just on Earth. Is this what you wanted? Jiwon felt anger rise in her chest. We wanted to be left alone. We wanted to exist as equals. The Concordat made this war, not us, I know, and I'm trying to end it. Orinthia's voice softened. There are people in my government who want to continue fighting. Admiral Corvus thinks we can still win if we just commit more resources. But I've convinced the Emperor to at least explore peace. We're offering you a ceasefire. The Concordat will withdraw all forces from the Sol system. We will recognize Earth's independence. In exchange, you stop your attacks on our territory. That's it? Jiwon asked. We get our system back and you get to keep the rest of your empire? What else do you want? You've won your independence. That's what you said you wanted. Jiwon thought about it. It was a good offer, better than she had hoped for. Earth could rebuild, humanity could survive, but something about it felt wrong. I need to discuss this with our military command, she said finally. Of course, but please hurry. There are forces on both sides that don't want peace. If we wait too long, this opportunity will be lost. The transmission ended. Jiwon sat in the dark room and tried to understand what she was feeling. Relief? Fear? Both? The meeting with military command happened 3 hours later. General Sang-ho, Commander Taiman, and the other senior officers gathered on Europa. Jiwon presented the Concordat's offer. It's a trap, Sang-ho said immediately. They want us to stop fighting so they can rebuild their strength. Then they'll attack us again. Maybe, Jiwon admitted. But maybe they really do want peace. They're losing control of their empire. 23 species have rebelled. If this keeps going, the entire Concordat might collapse. Good, Sang-ho said coldly. Let it collapse. Let every species under their control go free. And how many will die in the chaos? Jiwon asked. The Concordat enforced peace for 1,000 years. A brutal peace, yes, but peace nonetheless. If it collapses completely, there will be wars across the galaxy. Millions more will die. That's not our responsibility, Sang-ho replied, isn't it? Jiwon looked around the room. We started this. Our resistance inspired others to rebel. We have a responsibility to think about what comes next. Commander Taiman had been quiet during the argument. Now he spoke. What exactly do you think we should do, Ambassador? I think we should negotiate, Jiwon said. Not just for Earth's independence, but for real change. Make them dissolve the Empire. Create something new. A republic where all species have equal voice. They'll never agree to that, Sang-ho said. They might. If the alternative is total collapse, Jiwon stood up. I want permission to continue negotiations. To see if we can achieve real peace, not just a ceasefire. And if they refuse? Taiman asked. Then we keep fighting. The vote was close, but Jiwon got permission to negotiate. General Sang-ho voted against it. He made his position clear. Humanity should fight until the Concordat was completely destroyed. Anything less was surrender, but Taiman voted yes, and his vote carried weight. The hero of Aegis Prime, the commander who had fought the aliens for over a year, believed peace was possible. The negotiations happened on a neutral space station in unclaimed territory. Jiwon brought a small team, including Captain Hyunwoo as security. Chancellor Orinthia came with advisors from the imperial government. They talked for 3 days straight. It was difficult, angry work. The Concordat didn't want to give up their empire. Earth didn't trust anything they said. But slowly, carefully, they found common ground. The empire as it exists is finished, Orinthia admitted on the second day. Too many species have rebelled. We can't hold it together with military force. But if we just let it collapse, there will be chaos. Civil wars, atrocities. So what do you propose? Jiwon asked. A transition. The empire becomes a republic like you suggested. All species get representation. But it happens gradually over years so we can maintain stability. Who leads during this transition? A council. Representatives from multiple species, including humans. We share power. Jiwon wanted to believe it could work. But she kept thinking about what Sang-ho had said. This could be a trap, a way to buy time. On the third day, everything fell apart. News came from the Concordat capital. Admiral Corvus and other military hardliners had attempted a coup. They had tried to remove Emperor Veltharis and seize control of the government. The coup had failed, but barely. The capital was in chaos. The hardliners won't accept peace, Arinthia said, looking shaken. Corvus would rather see the galaxy burn than admit defeat to primitives. Then he'll get his wish, Captain Hyunwoo said quietly. Because if this peace fails, we'll burn it all down. Before anyone could respond, alarms sounded. The space station's sensors had detected ships approaching. A lot of ships. Ji-won's blood ran cold as she looked at the tactical display. 20 Concordat warships led by Admiral Corvus himself. They were coming to the station and their weapons were charged. They're going to kill us all, Arinthia whispered. The hardliners would rather start the war again than let us make peace. Hyunwoo was already on his communicator calling for his ship. How long until they're in weapons range? 4 minutes, someone said. Ji-won made a decision. We evacuate now. Everyone to the ships. They ran through the station corridors. Ji-won could hear the sound of her own breathing, fast and scared. They were so close to peace, so close to ending this nightmare, and now it was all falling apart because some admiral couldn't accept defeat. They reached the docking bay where Hyunwoo's ship waited, but as they ran for the airlock, explosions rocked the station. Corvus wasn't waiting. He was firing on the station, trying to kill the negotiators before they could escape. Go! Hyunwoo shouted. Everyone get to the ship. Ji-won ran. She made it to the airlock, turned around to make sure everyone was behind her, saw Arinthia stumbling, wounded by flying debris, saw Hyunwoo run back to help her, and saw the next missile hit the docking bay. The explosion threw Ji-won backward into the ship. She hit the wall hard, her vision going dark for a moment. When she could see again, she looked back at the docking bay. Hyunwoo was down, trapped under debris. Arinthia was trying to reach him, but more missiles were hitting the station. The docking bay was coming apart. Pilot Yoon Seo made the decision Ji-won couldn't. She closed the airlock and fired the ship's engines. They pulled away from the station just as another explosion tore through the bay. No, Ji-won screamed. We have to go back. We can't, Yoon Seo said, her voice cracking. I'm sorry, Ambassador, but we can't. Through the window, Ji-won watched the space station break apart. Hyunwoo was still in there. The man who had fought for Earth for over a year, who had destroyed a dozen Concordat bases, who had believed in peace. Gone. Just like that. Chancellor Arinthia made it to her own ship. She broadcast a message as she fled, accusing Admiral Corvus of treason and war crimes, but it didn't matter. The damage was done. The peace talks had failed. 1 week later, Ji-won stood before the Human Command Council on Europa. Her arm was in a sling from injuries in the escape. Her face was bruised, but her voice was clear. Admiral Corvus and his hardliners have declared open war on both the Emperor and Earth. The Concordat is in civil war now, some fleets still loyal to Veltharis, others following Corvus. The final phase of the war lasted 8 more months. 8 months of brutal, relentless fighting across 100 worlds. The Concordat civil war made everything worse. Some alien fleets fought for the Emperor, trying to restore order. Others followed Admiral Corvus, who promised to crush the human rebellion and restore imperial glory. And caught in the middle were countless species who just wanted the war to end. Ambassador Ji-won worked day and night from her base on Europa. She wasn't just a diplomat anymore. She was building something new while the old empire burned. She reached out to rebel species, offering them alliance. Join together, she told them. Help us destroy the empire and we'll build a republic where everyone has a voice. Slowly, species started to join. The Varanti were first, remembering how human commandos had inspired their revolution. Then came others. The Torvians, the Miklari, the Orsini, species that had lived under Concordat rule for centuries, now fighting for their freedom. But Admiral Corvus wasn't finished. He gathered the most loyal imperial fleets and prepared for one final assault. His target was Earth itself. If he could destroy humanity's homeworld, he believed the rebellion would collapse. Other species would see that resistance was futile. He was wrong about that. But he was still dangerous. Commander Taemin received intelligence about Corvus's plans 3 weeks before the attack. The admiral had assembled 200 warships, the largest Concordat fleet anyone had seen in decades. They were coming to Earth for a final battle. We have 73 combat ships, Taemin said, looking at the tactical display on his flagship. Against 200. We can't win this fight. Then we don't fight it alone, said General Sang-ho. He had come personally to help plan the defense. The rebel species owe us. It's time to collect, the call went out across the galaxy. Earth needs help. Everyone who had benefited from human resistance, everyone who wanted the old empire to fall, it was time to stand together. They came. Ships from dozens of species, many of them barely armed converted civilian vessels. But they came. And suddenly Earth's defense fleet wasn't 73 ships. It was 300. The Battle of Earth began on a Tuesday morning. Admiral Corvus's fleet dropped out of quantum space at the edge of the solar system, weapons ready. He expected to see a small, desperate human defense force. Instead, he saw an armada. Human ships standing alongside Varanti cruisers, Torvian destroyers, Maclari frigates, and dozens of other species vessels. All of them waiting, all of them ready to fight. "This is Commander Taemin of the Earth Defense Force," the transmission came. "You are ordered to stand down and surrender. This is your only warning." Corvus's response was to open fire. The battle was chaos. Ships from 100 different species fighting together for the first time against the most powerful fleet the Concordat could assemble. Taemin coordinated as best he could, but it was impossible to control everything. The battle spread across millions of kilometers. Lieutenant Minna led a boarding assault on Corvus's flagship. Her team jumped from ship to ship, fighting through corridors trying to reach the admiral. The ship's crew fought hard, but they were trained for conventional warfare. Minna's team had spent over a year fighting like ghosts. They won. When they finally reached the bridge, Corvus was waiting. He held a weapon, determined to die fighting rather than surrender. But Minna was faster. She shot the weapon from his hand and pinned him against the wall. "You lose," she said simply. On Concordat Prime, Emperor Veltharis IX watched the battle through his command center's displays. His fleet was losing. The admiral who had promised to save the empire was captured, and the humans, the species he had tried to destroy as a lesson, were winning. He knew what came next. The mob was already outside his palace, former subject species freed by the chaos of civil war, demanding justice, demanding his head for 1,000 years of oppression. Veltharis made the same choice countless rulers had made throughout history. He abdicated. Rather than face execution, he stepped down from the throne and dissolved the imperial government. The 1,000-year-old Galactic Concordat officially ended. News of the Emperor's abdication reached Earth while the battle was still ongoing. When Corvus's fleet heard that their Emperor had surrendered, they lost the will to fight. Ships began standing down, surrendering. Within hours, the battle was over. Earth had survived. Against all odds, against an empire of thousands of worlds, humanity had survived. But surviving wasn't enough. The galaxy was in chaos now. With the Concordat dissolved, there was no central authority, no government. Some species celebrated their freedom. Others descended into civil war, fighting over who would lead in the Empire's absence. General Sang-Ho wanted to let them fight. "It's not our problem," he said during the command meeting. "We defended Earth, that's enough." But Ambassador Ji-Wan disagreed. "We helped destroy the old order. We have a responsibility to build something better. Otherwise, we just traded one nightmare for a different one." The debate raged for weeks, but eventually Ji-Wan won. Earth would help build a new galactic government. But this time it would be different. This time it would be fair. The trials began 3 months after the war ended. War crimes tribunals were set up to judge Concordat leaders who had ordered attacks on civilian populations. Admiral Corvus was tried first. The evidence against him was overwhelming. He had ordered the destruction of Sol. He had killed billions across multiple worlds. He had tried to kill peace negotiators. The tribunal found him guilty and sentenced him to life imprisonment. Some wanted execution, but Ji-Wan argued against it. "If we become killers ourselves, we're no better than they were." Justice, not revenge, Corvus went to prison. So did dozens of other imperial commanders. But not all of them. Some were offered amnesty if they helped with the transition. The galaxy needed people with experience in administration, in logistics, in the practical work of keeping civilization running. It was messy and imperfect. But slowly, a new government took shape. The Galactic Republic, they called it. Every member species got representatives based on their population. Decisions were made by vote, not by imperial decree. It wasn't perfect, but it was better. Ambassador Ji-Wan became the Republic's first Secretary General. She didn't want the job, but everyone insisted. She had led the diplomatic effort. She had united species against the Empire. She had earned the right to lead. On Earth, reconstruction began. It would take decades to fully rebuild, Cities had to be raised from ruins, forests replanted, oceans cleaned. But humanity had survived, and that was enough to start with. Commander Taemin, now promoted to admiral, oversaw the Republic's defense force. It was made up of ships from dozens of species all working together. He trained them personally, teaching them the lessons humanity had learned. Never underestimate your enemy. Never stop adapting and never ever give up. The memorial ceremony happened 5 years after the war ended. Earth had rebuilt Seoul, and in the center of the city stood a massive monument. Black stone carved with names. Billions of names. Every person who had died in the war. Da-yoon stood before the memorial with her daughter, Ha-yoon. The girl was 7 years old, born after the war ended. She had never known the fear, the violence, the constant threat of death. She grew up in a galaxy where humans were respected, not hunted. Did you know any of these people? Ha-yoon asked, looking at the endless list of names. Many of them, Da-yoon said quietly. She had survived the resistance, lived through years of fighting in the ruins. But so many others hadn't, friends, neighbors, fellow fighters. All gone. Why did they die? Ha-yoon asked. Dan thought about how to answer. How do you explain war to a child who's never known it? How do you make her understand the price of freedom? They died so you could live in a better galaxy, Da-yoon said finally. They fought so you would never have to. So you could grow up free, equal to anyone, anywhere. Ha-yoon seemed to understand. She placed a flower at the base of the memorial, like thousands of other people were doing, humans and aliens together, mourning the dead, celebrating the peace they had won. Across the galaxy, similar memorials went up. On Verantis Prime, honoring the Veranti who had rebelled. On Concordat Prime, renamed Republic Prime, honoring victims of imperial oppression. The galaxy was learning to remember, to honor the sacrifice, to never forget the cost of freedom. Engineer Su Jin taught at the new Galactic Academy, training the next generation of scientists and engineers. Humans and aliens studied together, sharing knowledge that had been hoarded by the Empire for centuries. Technology advanced faster than ever before. Medicine improved. Everyone benefited. Lieutenant Mina retired from military service and became a teacher. She taught history, making sure young people understood what had happened, why the war started, what it cost, how peace was won. Her students were from dozens of different species, all learning together. 10 years after the war ended, Ambassador Ji-won stood before the Republic Senate and delivered a speech. She was older now, tired from a decade of building a new government, but she was also proud. We didn't set out to destroy an empire, she told the gathered representatives. We only wanted to be left alone, to exist as equals. But when we were attacked, we fought back. And in fighting, we discovered something important. We aren't meant to be ruled. None of us are.